Less than 90 days ago, I made this video. And in it, I shared my exact thesis on how I would hit 100K per month within my business. Now, although it was just a thesis, I was highly convicted that if I executed properly, I would be able to see the growth that I was hoping for. Now, truth be told, I set December 31st, 2025 as the date for this goal. And now, on the 31st of July, 2025, I can not only say that I smashed my goal, but I 2.5x my business, hitting 100K per month with a 89% profit margins 5 months ahead of schedule. And in fact, to be even more specific, this July, I did $137,909 in contracted revenue, collected more than $66,000 in new, not back-end, but new front-end revenue while maintaining a 95% close rate on over 20 calls. And the absolute best part is that I don't have a gigantic viral audience. I've only posted 8 videos on YouTube and have less than 4,000 combined followers. And while I don't use any cheap tactics, magic ad strategies, or complex do-it-all funnels that these gurus are talking about online. So over the next minutes, I'm gonna show you every single step that I've personally taken to go from 0 to 100K in under 18 months, because I'm on a mission to show you that growth in the info space isn't about some crazy growth strategy, some magic ad formula, complex one-size-fits-all funnels, and it's really just about having the right foundations and fundamentals in place, followed by the right roadmap. And that's something that a lot of coaches, creators, operators, as well as just consultants really seem to miss in today's market. So let's jump into it. What I want to start off by is sharing my own core philosophy, because for me that's very, very important. You see, I built my business on the pillar of 4 important philosophies, being honesty and authenticity first. Because what's the point of building a business in which you lie and deceive others to make a profit? Second, simple ecosystems over complex funnels. And I say simplicity is the greatest form of sophistication. Simplicity means you can scale more effectively. You can have a lot of fun building a business that isn't a lot of headache to build. And that brings me to the third philosophy, 80% profit minimum and a lean team. Because again, leaning off the idea of having simplicity in your business, what's the point of a gigantic business doing $1 million in revenue where you only keep 20%? And lastly, high intent audience over virality and shitty followers. Because, well, what is the point of having a lot of followers all for the sake of vanity when you barely get any customers that want to work with you? I prefer having a small audience of people who genuinely are dedicated to working with me, who want to solve the problems that I can serve them for. And, well, that's a lot of fun for me. And this is how I also build my business. So to show you how I did that, I'm going to run you through what I call my imminent growth protocol. This is my 7-step core methodology that I talk about in a lot of my videos. Now, I won't go down too much into it, but the whole idea behind it is that it is important and really imperative to build growth ecosystems because it's the foundation to how your clients can find you, interact with you, and really how you can serve them. And I'm going to run you through each of these steps later on in this video. But first, let me run you through my numbers, which I find very important out of transparency reason. As you can see, in January of 2025, I was stuck around 12K. I was hovering around the 10, 20K per month mark. And then through sheer force in February, I was able to grow to 30.5K. Now, this is a great point in my business because, okay, whoa, completely shattered some of my limiting beliefs I had that I couldn't grow. However, as you can see from March, April, May, and June, I was pretty much consistently hovering at that number until this month in July, I was able to grow to 100K. And as you can see, here are a few of my transactions. I haven't listed all of them, but about 60% of what I earn goes through Stripe and 40% through wire transfer. So now, in order to grow a business like this, I want to start off with the fundamentals, which I find incredibly crucial because, well, a business will only ever grow if you have the right systems in place. Now, the first step of how I was able to build my business to 100K is the fundamentals. And arguably, this is one of the most important things I can share because, well, to sell or scale any offer, there are 4 fundamental prerequisites, I like to call them, that you must meet at all times if you're going to grow. The first of this is you need an audience with a clear problem and a goal, and you need an offer to serve them with. And this is pretty obvious, but I wanted to mention here because your client is typically at what I call point A over here. They have a transformation that they're looking for. They want to grow to point B. For example, they're stuck at 5K per month. They want to hit the 20K, but how do they make that growth spurt? How will you be able to help them? If you cannot show that you're able to serve them from point A to B, well, there's no reason to be interested in what you offer in the first place. The second fundamental prerequisite you need to sell your offer is what I like to call the 3 yes thesis, meaning simply said, and this really shifted how I started approaching scaling info businesses in my journey, it's your audience needs to say yes to the outcome that you can serve them with, the outcome that they're hoping to achieve, a yes to the method that you are going to essentially serve them by, mindset, that's the vehicle to their outcome, and lastly, a yes to you. And this explains a lot of times why funnels and all these cheap tactics don't really work effectively. So if you just have a landing page sending people to traffic, in this case, to the landing page saying, hey, I can get you to 10K per month in 30 days with a guarantee, well, there's no real transparency behind who you are. There's no real transparency behind your method, and most of the time this creates a false connection. I have a complete video breaking this down, which you can find down in the description below. But back to it, essentially you need these 3 yeses to sell any offer, and really you want to go from basically your audience never having seen you before, aka a no to what you do, a no to trusting you, and a no to the method you serve them by, to these 3 yeses. More on that in just a second. And if you fail to get these 3 yeses, you will fail to sell and serve, because well, your audience needs to know that you're actually legitimate before they'll buy from you, especially if it's high ticket. Then the third prerequisite is an ecosystem that gets your audience to say yes to these 3 points. Going into that in just a moment. And lastly, when your audience is pre-sold, in other words, well, they just need to have a very optimized nurture flow by which you can convert your audience and, well, sell your services or serve them. That's really all it takes. So how did that look like for me? Let's begin with my initial conditions. You see, when I started at $0 a month, I had not a lot of information. I didn't have a lot of knowledge. Let me break it down like that. I had a background in marketing, content creation, photography, which you can see over here. I was doing around 1K per month doing photography and videography. Eventually, I worked for an agency as a creative director, only earning up to 3K per month. And then I quit my job doing, well, a design content agency, which, as you can see, didn't really earn me anything. And looking back, it was pretty obvious. You see, I had no prior experience serving anyone in the info market. I didn't really have any cases or client testimonials. I had no idea how to build an offer, and I had no idea how to deliver and serve. In other words, I had no clue what I was doing. And if you think about it from the 3 yes thesis, I had no outcome I was serving for people, I had no method, and I was not credible as a source or a service provider to serve anyone with. So what I did was I invested 7.5K in mentorship to bridge this gap, which was a no-brainer for me, honestly, because I didn't know what I was doing at all. And so by investing into this, and it was Short Form Society back then, that was a program I joined, I was able to research the market. I found my core audience, and I was able to build a scalable offer, essentially meaning that I was able to find my 3 yeses that I could now communicate with my audience. And so the start was really a very big grind. You see, I offered done-for-you growth operating, a done-for-you service to scale info businesses. I knew the outcome. I developed a really good method for this, my growth protocol, and I knew how to present myself. So I began outreaching. It was a very, very big grind. And to all of you who are currently doing your own outreaches, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But within 4 months of perseverance, I was able to hit my first 10K month. Then in 6 months, I had my first very strong case after applying all my systems properly. That's this video over here that I also have on my YouTube for my client Nicole that got her from 0 to 7K in 120 days. That was a huge success case. And in 8 months, I hit my first $20,000 month. Now, everything looked great, but I was heavily stagnating between $10,000 to $15,000 per month from September 2024 until January 2025, what I showed you earlier as well. And although through sheer effort, I did manage to hit my first 30K month in February of 2025, I did feel deep within that something needed to change because, well, I was just constantly grinding. It was a lot of 10 to 12 hour days. And don't get me wrong, I'm a hard worker. I enjoy working because I really enjoy what I do, except I didn't really feel fulfilled. So at the end of February 2025, I had a call with my mentor, Frederick. Shout out Fred, love you bro. Thanks for everything. I was able to have a really good conversation with him, kind of like mapping out my next steps. And in this conversation, he told me, you're a really good operator and your clients have gotten amazing results working with you. In fact, by then I had my second case. So why don't you just use your own growth protocol to your own business and launch your own leveraged offers? And so I was thinking about it. I was only selling my done-for-you service. I didn't really have anything else. I didn't really have my own ecosystem or any real online presence other than a few thousand followers online. So I said, fuck it, let's go do it. And so I began really developing my growth protocol. And yes, I hit 30K in Feb, but again, I had permanently been doing outreach, word of mouth, grinding. I didn't really have any leverage, and I knew that this would not get me to 100K. And so to hit 100K, I needed to move to the second phase of my master plan, which is I needed to reverse engineer my goals. Now, this is so important, you see, because scaling to 100K per month isn't, I mean, there's 1,000 ways there, as the saying goes. There's 1,000 paths to Rome. I think that's what it is. My dad always used to say that. And so I knew I had 3 growth factors that would determine where I could bring this. The first is my initial conditions. conditions, the second, my freedom number, and the third, my business rules. Without these, my business would have been chaos and I would definitely not enjoy it, because that's what happened up until the point that I hit my first 30K month. So my initial conditions around the 28th of Feb 2025 were that my audience size was around 2200 IG followers, 40 on YouTube, and the truth is I was really not active, meaning I didn't post a lot on stories. I had a lot of imposter syndrome back then, and I was what I would consider myself a micro brand. Now, I did have two very strong cases, the one of Nicole that got her from 0 to 4K per month to 20K per month, and Caroline was stuck at 10K per month, who's now at 30K per month after 90 days. These are very strong cases, and so I leveraged them. But before I could leverage them, I, needed to have a stronger foundation. See, I only had my done-for-you service, no ads, no ecosystem, no place to bring my audience to. So I did a bit of calculating. What would be a great way to get to 100K? So I came up with my magic number, obviously being $100,000, but there's so many ways to get that done. So I decided, okay, I want to lower my total done-for-you clients to only 3 clients that bring me in a total of $20,000 per month minimum, meaning that my clients have to do 20 to 50K per month in profit, where I have a 20 to 30% profit share. I basically came up with a thesis for my current offer called The Collective. That's also my flagship offer, my Done With You offer, in which the goal would be to scale it up to 80K per month with 32 active clients. We're currently at 24, which is super awesome, bringing in $3,125 per month or 12.5K every 4 months. If I do this successfully, that would mean I'd be able to scale it to 80K per month with my one-on-one services. Then the collective also has a community, which I would be able to bring in an additional 20 clients at $1,250 a month or 5K every 4 months, which would bring me to $25,000 per month. This alone within the collective already had the potential for 100K, and with my done-for-you clients, I could also scale it up a lot more, presuming the fact that they scaled up further. And lastly, I had my DIY offers, which are basically one-time offers, frameworks, courses, basically trackers, material only that I could share with people who needed my help but couldn't either pay for my one-on-one services or done for you or just weren't the right fit. And so with my magic number in mind, the last step that I needed to really map out before I really could get moving is, well, what rules do I have? How do I want to do this? And for me, it was straightforward. Before, I was working with low leverage. I was constantly stressed. I was doing everything. I had no real return on all my heavy time spent. It was all linear. And I didn't really have high returns for the effort. Meaning, now, here's the rules that I have for myself. I wanted to hit 100K in peace, enjoying my life. I'm still gonna be working, don't get me wrong, but I wanna enjoy my process. Meaning that for me, the first rule would always still be truth over profit. If I do not align with a prospect, I'm not gonna work with them, fuck that. The second goal was to work around 50 to 60 hours per week in my current phase. Right now, this is optimized for my lifestyle and I enjoy it, meaning I have 4 days of calls, 1 day for content like today, and 1 day to optimize my structures in my business, and lastly, a day off because it's very relevant. The third rule was still fuck virality, because I still don't see the value in having a gigantic audience that doesn't actually engage with you. Don't get me wrong, a gigantic audience that is engaged is great, but an unengaged audience is just vanity. Fourth, dream clients only. Same thing that I said in the first part. I only want to work with my dream clients because that would bring my heart and make me very happy. And lastly, I would maintain my 80% margin rule with simplicity in the business. And so if I did this correctly, what that would mean is that I would have a business I would love. And that's exactly what happened this month. So the last steps to get moving were, for me, now that I know exactly what my rules and structures are, is to have a very clear vehicle and offer to serve my audience. And lastly, an ecosystem that attracts my dream audience, nurtures them, qualifies them, and, well, in other words, gets them the 3 yeses before I even offer them my help. And so with the answers clear, we can now move into building the ecosystem. Now that brings me to the third phase of how I build a 100K per month business, which is knowing your audience and building your ecosystem. I'm gonna really emphasize and go deep on this one, and I'm gonna double mark it. Please know your audience. Remember the 3 yes thesis that's required to sell any single offer. If you don't know who you're serving, if you don't fully understand their goals, the problems and pains they're facing right now, or their customer journey, what they're currently going through in their life cycle, what's happening, it's going to be so difficult to serve them properly, and it's only going to cause you blockages along the way of trying to actually serve people. Meaning, in my case, I had to get very clear on who I'm serving. Now, I kind of already knew it because, well, I am my own audience to an extent, growing info businesses, and at the same time, I already served a lot of info businesses, scaling up to 30K per month. So, in my case, I had 2 ICAs. Info businesses, coaches, creators, consultants, and info operators. And you might be thinking, okay, the one are agencies, the one are coaches. That's a very drastically different audience, Vincent. And yes, you're not wrong there. However, they both have the exact same problem. Their biggest challenge is scaling their offer. in this case, info operators want to learn how do I scale up my offer to help and serve more info businesses, and coaches, consultants, creators, info businesses just want to know how to serve more people. It is fundamentally the same problem, and I know that because my audience is typically stuck, and if you're watching this might be you as well, stuck between 5 to 20K per month, or in this case, having very inconsistent income with their business. Their offer is undervalued and they're not really able to price their services for what they're actually worth. They don't consistently get a consistent amount of high quality leads, and most of their audience is very low intent. And well, lastly, their close rate is really abysmally low, meaning less than 50%, often between 20 and 30%. They get a lot of ejections and sales feels really sticky and icky and not like a lot of fun. And my conclusion has always come down to is that they don't really have a structured plan or roadmap to hit that goal, to hit anywhere beyond 10 to 20K per month consistently. And I know this because that was my problem. That is what I had to solve for myself on the majority of this run. And so now that I knew exactly who I was serving, the next step for me was to be able to structure my offers in a way where I could present them this. And like I already said, what I'm insanely good at doing is scaling info businesses to 40K per month. Shout out to Charlie. So my signature offer is my done with you offer. And I'm going to compare my offer structures kind of to music, right? You can basically see the done with you offer like yourself bringing your music instruments, maybe bringing your band, and I'm going to show you exactly how to play the instruments. This is really what I call the hybrid offer thesis, in which you have multiple ways to serve the exact same outcome, depending on the best fit for your audience, meaning you're more flexible, you can increase your lifetime value, and really truthfully just serve a lot more people in a way that aligns with you and the way that they would like help. So, with my done with you offer, it's really my mentorship and consulting, and essentially the rules for me were simple. I'm only serving my 5% ICA, the people who I really believe are fit for this. They're gonna get my guidance, one-on-one support, framework structures, theses, every single thing basically that I've done to scale to 100K and help my other clients scale. And it's very imperative that it is a fit on both sides. If I don't want to show up every single day, if I don't really align with this person, then I'm not gonna offer my help, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And of course, the way this is set up, it's 4 months for $12,500, where you get my private access, my community, and your own dashboard with me. And of course, the goal is to scale you to 20 to 50K per month in MRR, or even beyond that. The next offer I have, kind of like a band, I like to think it is. My team and I will come through to wherever you want, and we'll essentially play the music for you. The equivalent of this is we'll come in and scale your info business. The rules for this are very strict, though. I only work with 0.1% clients, and I must align with them, and they have to align with my operating style. Meaning, this is a longer term partnership, typically between 9 to 12 months, where the main service is every single bit of implementation from our sides. My team and I take care of it, and the setup for this is a $15,000 minimum setup with a 30% profit share. And the goal is to scale to 50 to 100K per month. Because I'm more involved in the process, I can actually also serve in a far more effective way because it's a done for you service. But the minimum prerequisite for this is that the business is doing at least 40K in profit monthly. And then lastly, there's the DIY offer. What I like to compare this to is the music sheet. The whole idea behind this is if this is a person who would like to enter my world, who would love to learn from me, but doesn't really necessarily have the funds or doesn't really fit to work with me one-on-one or in my mentorship or inside of the collective, but they still want the trackers, the frameworks, the systems, or just the dashboards that I have, then every month I make a one-time offer, typically between 1.5 to 4K, where I get them access to my systems and services. And that way they can still benefit from what I have to offer without necessarily the high commitment up front. So these are my 3 offers. And now that I was very clear on who I was serving and how I was serving them, the last step was, okay, let's go build up that actual ecosystem. So now let's talk about the optimal ecosystem structure. And in my case, keep in mind, I used my initial conditions, my magic number, and my business rules to really decipher and decide this. And keep in mind, scaling info is heavily case dependent. For every single client that I work with, we're really considering their conditions, their rules, and their magic number to really find the right ecosystem setup. And in my case, I use what I like to call the growth Instagram YouTube flywheel. What it means is that Instagram essentially is considered my main contact point, and this is highly intentional. Back when I started my initial conditions at around 2,000 followers, it was the best platform for people to enter my world, to get to see what I do. And based on how the platform works, stories, content pieces that are easy to consume, it's a great point to create a first impression. And remember, this is all based on the 3S thesis. I want my audience, the moment they first get in touch with me, to get a yes very quickly to the outcome that I can serve. They have to understand who I am and get a really good impression of me at the very get-go. And lastly, there has to be some kind of an interest behind the method, aka growth ecosystems, that I can serve them with if they are one of my ICAs. And so how that looked like is typically I would run ads For example, this content piece over here is one of the many ads I've run where I get people to follow my page. Now this is an older ad. From this ad, I would essentially use organic content and stories to nurture people and introduce them into my world. And lastly, through call to actions or stories, they could essentially progress the customer journey, meaning that after they've entered on my Instagram, they move from having a no to the outcome, meaning who the fuck is this guy, to a who the fuck is this guy in terms of me, and a no to my method, to seeing what I do. And if they're a coach, creator, operator, or consultant, what that typically would be like, hey, okay, that Vincent guy can help me with something. He's skilled to 100K per month. And he doesn't seem like a total jackass on the internet, which I take very seriously, and I really hope you have that impression of me. And lastly, they get a big fat, what I like to call, to the method. Because I talk about growth ecosystems, I talk about customer journeys, I talk about scaling info on my page. What it basically means, and what I'm trying to say, is that Instagram filters my audience based on their customer journey. And to explain a little bit more about what I mean, these are the customer journey steps. And to give you a very small breakdown, they basically explain the customer steps before they make a purchase. And keep in mind, this isn't about purchasing my offer. It's about info operators, coaches, consultant creators who need help scaling their services. They're gonna look for help in one way or another. And there's a lot of people out there doing it in fucked up ways that aren't very ethical. So my job isn't necessarily to sell to anyone. It's just to make sure that it's clear how I serve and if there's alignment to help them. And a lot of the time, my audience is unaware. About 85%, I'll get into this in just a moment, is unaware. They're not really sure what the problem is that they have, but they, well, to an extent, align with my page. They might be aware of their symptoms, but they're not necessarily problem aware. And the goal for my content is to move them from one stage to another organically, without forcing an interaction or forcing a sale. You see, what a lot of people in high pressure sales do is they force the customer journey. They force someone to buy, which is a very sticky, icky way of selling. And what that means in my sales cycle is I want my audience to go from unaware about who I am to becoming content aware of what I do. That's what happens on my Instagram, to having brand resonance because they resonate with how I serve, to eventually becoming aware of that I have an offer. And if they align and are my ICA, well, they might become purchase ready. And I've emulated this journey many times and it has played out. I'll show it in just a moment. But after Instagram, how does YouTube fall into place? And this is really the beauty of this ecosystem. If my audience comes in through Instagram, and when they do, they'll essentially, if optimized properly and considering the right factors, get a yes to the outcome, yes to me, and a to my method. So how do they learn more about what I do? Well, they either DM me or they check my YouTube, where I have a binge bank, is like I like to call it. See, the whole point behind YouTube is optimizing my entire platform there to educate and move my problem-aware audience to solution-aware and purchase-ready, or unaware audience to problem-aware. And again, this is an amazing thing about knowing your audience. See, not every single buyer is the same. Not every single lead is the same. Everyone has their own decision-making process. Some people are more quick with decisions. Some take time to think about it. And see, the only fundamental way you can sell to an audience is, well, getting on a call and selling to them, if you think about it, right? Or you could have content in place that would slowly progress their journey while building trust, making it more clear how you serve, and showing your method in good light. That is the point behind all of this. And that's what these 3 content pieces did. See, at the end of the day, after sending these content pieces to my audience, what happened is that the last little to the method became a very clear green. A yes to the method. It also reinforced the outcome and myself, meaning that my audience is now ready to buy. And here's how that typically looked like. The customer journey moved from unaware to symptom aware to problem aware, solution, product aware, and eventually to purchase ready. And here's a crazy statistic that I would love to share. This one video that I posted on the 2nd of June, and that's actually less than 60 days from today, has converted in this short time about $178,909. How do I know this? Every single person that I've converted after having, well, seen this video, because I sent it to them, I actually made sure they watched it, has converted from it. Here's the numbers. In July, I have converted 19 out of 20 calls from it and 7 out of 7 in June, meaning 26 clients were closed through this one video, all because of running the right thesis. And that's the power of a good ecosystem. And so the last step here, of course, is aside from having the ecosystem in place, now that you know how content works, okay, Vince, but people don't just buy when they see your content, right? Of course they don't. How it works, and this is really the 4th step of my master plan, it's customer journey curation and conversions. And this is the last step to really getting upfront acquisition. So my constraints, and this is really important to keep in mind, initial conditions, is that I was a solo consultant, well, I still am, with some contractors in my team, but that does mean that I am capped because I have to take care of delivery, acquisition, and to an extent, content. Meaning I just have limited resources. Now this is okay, it's not a bad thing because hey, I've been able to hit 100K with very limited resources because I've been playing the cards right. And that means that because my ecosystem is small, every single lead is important. So You could hypothesize, yeah, but Vincent, if you're so busy, you could get a closer, sure, and lose my leverage there? Why would I do that when I can optimize my business in a different way? And this is where it comes again. Not every single lead is equal. And this is called the 15% trap by Eugene Schwartz in Breakthrough of Advertising 1966. I call it the 15% trap at least. There's this idea that only 15% of your audience will ever be ready to buy. And this is a big flaw with funnels and traditional sales systems within info businesses. The assumption that my audience, if they don't buy, fuck them, right? So the question I want you to ask yourself is, if 15% is ready to buy, and that's the thesis, what happens to the other 85%? And this is the fundamental flaw behind funnels. See, the biggest problem that I see with running funnels and all these high pressure sales tactics is that you're only fleshing out the 15% of your audience, and the other 85% you're basically saying a fat fuck you to. What's the point of that? It's so short-term thinking. It doesn't build any real leverage, meaning that you always at one time have to compete and go heavy on 15% of the audience who still have to go through their own customer journey of the 3 S's. So in my case, my ecosystem does the rest of the work. All the other 85% of the leads that I would have at one moment get to sit in my ecosystem, consume my world, understand how I serve, see more proof of how I help others, so that when their problem becomes big enough, or in other words, they move to the customer journey step of being problem aware at one point, the thesis here is essentially that at all times 15% of your audience is problem aware. When they do, I'm the right person to serve them. And that is the power behind an ecosystem. So in order for me to actually convert even more effectively, I still was on low time, meaning I got to speed up my sales process somehow. And what I did is what I like to call hybrid sales. I use a triage setter. See, once my audience had seen my YouTube video, they've seen my content, and now they're like, hey Vince, I want to get your help. The most effective way for me to serve them is by getting them on a sales call to make sure I can actually qualify them, because I don't want to fuck around and work with everyone. I want to make sure it's the right person. And so I used a triage setter. If you're familiar with a DM setter, that's someone who would sit in your DMs, have conversations with your leads, and essentially set them on a call. But my goal isn't to have a high volume of calls. Fuck that. Like you saw, I closed 26 out of 27 calls between June and July. I don't need 80 calls of which I only convert 20 to get the same amount. Well, a little bit more, but I don't need 80 calls to only convert 20. I want 27 high quality leads. And so how I did that is that my setter would have initial conversations with every single follower or lead that comes into my profile. And all they would do is qualify, see what's going on, what's the problem, where are you at with your business, what's the challenges. Because once we understood that, my setter would lead them to watch an ecosystem asset that I have also created intentionally to highlight the problem and how we've been able to solve it, either in my case or in the case of my client. That would get my lead nurtured if they align with my method, my philosophy, if they are a good lead. What that would eventually mean is that my lead would become problem aware, and after consuming more of my content, they would become purchase ready. And when they know my method, pricing, and my approach, the last step that needs to happen here again is that last step. The method goes from a to a yes. And all the other 3 points, the outcome and me, are even more clear. And then the last thing I have to do is get on a sales call to qualify them and decide if I want to work with them. And this is the power of a proper ecosystem. See, I didn't have a lot of followers. I don't have a gigantic audience, but what I do have is the right systems in place for the right times. And here's the results of what that led to. In 2025 alone, since I launched my Done With You offer, mind you, this is not with my Done For You offer or anything I've done before this, revenue shares I have opened. This is purely my Done With You offer. In just 5 months, if you consider it March, April, May, June, and July, there we go. I've been able to convert 84% of every single conversation I had. That's 54 calls that I actually had, and 43 closed, with a total cash of $271,000 in revenue and 126K collected. Now this is only upfront cash. This doesn't really count for back-end revenue. Look at these numbers. And as you can see in July, I hit a very big month with 66K in new cash, 95% close rate. And to give you the full stats of July, I had a back-end revenue total of 33.466 and new cash collected 66,534, totaling to a total of 100K. And if you're wondering, Vince, how the fuck did you get exactly 100K? When I was at 99241 in revenue on the 31st of July, I made a one-time offer to someone for $759, saying fuck it. That would be a really great deal for them. I could serve them with it, and again, keyword, I could serve them with it and hit my goal of 100K. And that is exactly how it all went. This is the power of a good ecosystem. Now that you understand front-end acquisition, there's just one last step to my master plan, which is back-end acquisition, or service and lifetime value. See, part of the client retention master plan, I do not know what happened to the text there, sorry about that, is on the one hand, yes, you can scale a business by getting more clients, which requires a lot of upfront effort, or you could retain your clients. effectively doubling their lifetime value. And let me tell you something about my current stats. My current retention rate inside of the collective is 75%, meaning I have reclosed 6 out of 8 clients, effectively doubling the lifetime value for those 6 people, meaning that I don't have to acquire a new person. And this is very, very much possible if you have a lifetime value flywheel. And this is so freaking cool. I cannot nerd about it enough, because what happens to a lot of businesses is that essentially their whole plan is, okay, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna run a new ad, gonna have more setters, have more closers in my team, run a bigger business, get more clients, bigger acquisition, more clients. Oh shit, my time goes down. Now I have to get a customer service delivery manager, up. And it's just more numbers, more volume, more headache, lower profit margins, and shitty client service. And yeah, that's possible, but I know for a fact that to hit 100K right now with a 75% retention rate, and assuming it stays that number, which is my big goal for this year, I'll have to acquire way less customers up front while maintaining quality within my community. And that is the power of a good system. And so to show you how this flywheel works, for me, it's really, really fun. And I really love nerding about it. Like you know about me, I'm a big nerd. I first of all run and test the thesis in my business. How do I get to 100K? I hit it. After testing it and based on the results and takeaways, I create an SOP, kind of like this video. This SOP I then implement for my done for you clients, which I get feedback from, because if I implement it for my done for you clients, I see what happens there. This feedback I then implement and update into newer SOPs that are more updated. I then provide these assets to my done with you clients in the collective. I then get more feedback. I then finish my assets with updated learnings, which I then turn into content like DIY resources for my clients, short form and long form content like this, that essentially helps me magnetize and get even higher quality clients. I then re-implement all these learnings into my business and my done for you client businesses and into my done with you client businesses, which means I can help them solve bigger problems. A great example of this is when I scaled to 20K per month. I could help other people with this. I then scaled to 50K and I could help more people with this. Now I scaled to 100K and I can keep serving, which means I get even more opportunities to serve my clients and upsell them and increase their lifetime value. But really, most importantly, I can serve them better, which means I can get more clients. And this just becomes a repetitive factor. And this is the beauty of a really, really well-created system. And so just to show you a bit of how that looks like in the back end, since I started my business in March 2024, I've been able to do over $1 million in client wins. And in the past 4 months alone, about $261,000 of that 1 mil plus came from the collective. You see, since I launched the collective, my clients have been able to do a total of $261,730 in revenue, meaning that if we keep this up, we're on track to doing over $1 million a year, which I am so proud of, because the growth is really high. And last month alone, July, my clients did over 120K. Almost half of that number came from last month's revenue. And here's just a few examples of my clients. Matthias over here, who is pretty much hit 20K within his business. Shout out Matthias. And his goal for that was in December, and he hit it in July. Or Charlie, who had 40K in revenue, video on that coming very soon. Emma, who closed her first client in just a single week working with me, a 5,000 euro deal, coming from selling $60 per hour of her time for her clients, and so many others. You can just see them all over here. And now the point that I'm trying to communicate is that this is what happens when you have a business that is fundamentally structured. See, yes, I run ads, as you can tell. Yes, I run content. Yes, I have a setter, and yes, I do sales calls, but none of these make up for a lack within my business. They're all pointed and positioned in a specific way to get my clients great outcomes, great support, great service, and myself. And that is it. That is every single thing that I have done to scale my business from 0 to 100K per month in under 18 months, maintaining an 89% profit margin. And this is really proof of what's possible when you do things right. And so before I end off this video, there's one thing I really want to share with every single one of you, and that is that, well, you don't have to be a piece of shit, you don't have to exploit, you don't have to be a broad scaler to actually build a beautiful business in the info space, because lately the entire online space of info businesses has been so disgusting to see. People exploiting others, constant cheap tactics, trying to be all cool and shit, when really a lot of people are just insecure and don't really believe in themselves, and quite frankly just run a business for money, to fill their pockets. And this whole time you've seen my 4 principles, but there was one thing that I really believed in, that I said when I'm starting this business 18 months ago, is I really genuinely want to help people. Yes, the money is great, but what the fuck's the point of it when my mom, my father, my sister, my partner, my wife look at me and go, "The fuck are you doing?" So please, I hope my journey can be proof that you can have a good business, you can have your fundamentals in place, you can be a good human being and serve others. And so now that you know the exact path that I took to go from 0 to 100K per month with an 89% profit margin, you're gonna wanna watch one video I have on my channel that goes into a very particularly large problem that a lot of info operators, creators, consultants, coaches run into that really mess you up even if your fundamentals are in place. And that's what I call the death of funnels, or the bullshit of funnels. I have a video link down below, please go ahead and watch that. And if you're looking for a few more specific case studies, scenarios of different offers, high ticket, low ticket, mid ticket, I have a bunch of client breakdowns on my channel which you can have a look at. And now lastly, if you're a coach, consultant, creator, info operator, and you've been struggling to navigate the info market, no matter what you do, you just can't seem to make past 20K per month and you're looking for some help, I'm really happy to share this. I might be able to serve you. If that's you, please go over to my Instagram, DM me the keyword grow, and make sure to give me a follow, obviously. And I'd be happy to hear about where you're at in your journey, what's going on, and if I can serve you, be happy to get on a chat with you, see if it aligns, and take it from there. So thank you for watching this. I truly hope it brought you a lot of value. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, because I'm getting a lot more videos like these, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.